My God, life isn't just complicated, it's camouflaged. It wraps itself in silk and smoke, whispering sweet nothings while hiding jagged truths beneath the surface. Not the kind of illusions that fade with the morning sun. Deeper. Darker. The kind that wears a suit and a smile. And there's a certain kind of person. The narcissist. Who drinks from that poisoned well like it's holy water. They don't just dabble in fantasy. They build temples out of it, worship at the altar of their own reflection, not because they love it, but because they're afraid of what's behind it. See, the narcissist doesn't walk through life. They perform it. They choreograph every scene, cast every role, and if you're close, you're handed a part you never auditioned for. No script, no cue cards, just applause, please. They keep the spotlight on, but every now and then, yes, someone shows up who sees the stage rigging, who hears the creaks behind the curtains, and that, my friend, is when the show starts to fall apart. If that's you, if you've stepped out of the fog and said, "White, this ain't real," then you're not just surviving, you're chosen. You're not broken, you're called. You're not bitter, you're burning. Because there is power. Sacred, they world-shaking power. In standing when everything else tells you to sit. In refusing to bow to the illusion. And when you do that, when you stop laughing at the wrong jokes, stop nodding at the twisted logic, stop twisting yourself to fit their story, you don't just challenge the narcissist. You collapse their kingdom, their paper, then empire starts to shake. Because the truth doesn't knock politely. It kicks down the door. Now don't get me wrong. The narcissist won't back down. No, they'll claw. They'll twist your words. Call you the villain in a story you never wrote. They'll paint your honesty as cruelty, your clarity as confusion. Because if what you're saying is true, even a little, then everything they've built is at risk. And they can't have that. They won't. But let me say something with fire. You don't have to answer every accusation. You don't have to fix their story. You were never meant to argue with ghosts. You're not here to fight illusions. You're here to live so honestly, so boldly, so beautifully grounded in truth, that no lie can tether itself to you. That's your strength. Not in winning an argument, but in becoming untouchable by the drama. And if your honesty has rattled them, if your presence sends them scrambling for control, rejoice. That's not your burden. That's your evidence. You're not the problem. You're the mirror, and no mask likes a mirror. There comes a moment, my friend, so piercing, so divine, when the fog parts and you see, not just glance, not just suspect. You see, the smiles that don't reach the eyes, the affection laced with hooks, the applause that always came with strings. And that moment, it will change you forever. Not everyone makes it there. Most people cling to their blindfolds like life jackets. Because clarity doesn't coddle. It teeth breaks. It demands you leave comfort behind and stare straight into what you've tried to avoid. But if you're here, listening, feeling this in your bones, then maybe, just maybe, you've already begun to see, and there's no going back. We throw around words like narcissism like it's some buzzword. But what hides behind it is fear, not confidence, not prior, a soul afraid to be real, afraid to be seen without a filter. The narcissist doesn't manipulate you for fun, they manipulate to survive. They need the mask, the act, because the truth would undo them. So they build a stage, a script, a story where they're the center. But they can't run the show alone. They need an audience. A plast. They need you, not just near them, but invested. Because your reactions feed the illusion. Your emotions are the glue. But when you stop, when you put down the script and step off the stage, when your silence says more than your screams ever did, that's when the walls begin to shake. That's when the mask begins to slip, and they know it. They might sweeten their words. They might echo the old phrases you once fell for. But it's a test. They're probing, checking to see if the spell still works. And when it doesn't, when you just don't react, that's when the rage comes. That's when the charm turns cold. Because you didn't just stop playing the part, you threatened the whole performance. But let me take you even deeper. Why do any of us, not just the narcissist, build lies? Why the charites? Why the personas? It's pain, it's shame, it's survival. We lie to avoid wounds. We fake it because the truth asks for more than we think we can give. The narcissist's entire life is a contract signed in silence. I'll give you the dream, if you pretend it's real. And when you stop pretending, the deal dies. And in their world, that's betrayal. But you didn't betray them. You just woke up. And when you woke up, the game ended. The person they loved, it wasn't you. It was the version of you that bowed, that clapped, that played the part. The moment you started seeing clearly, you became a threat. so they'll do what they always do. Spin, twist, accuse, confuse. Because they must make you doubt. That's the only way the illusion survives. But you're stronger than doubt. You are. You've come to a crossroads now. One path, familiarity, leads back into the play. The other, it demands your whole heart. It may feel lonely. It may burn. But it's the road of freedom. Because once your eyes have been opened, you can't close them again. Once you've tasted truth, the lie loses its sweetness. And that burden you're carrying, that unbearable clarity, that's not a curse. It's a gift, a holy, blazing torch that lights the way not just for you, but for others still trapped in the shadows. You're not here to fix the narcissist. You're here to become truth. To embody it so fully, so freely, so fearlessly, that your very life becomes a declaration. Because illusion is only powerful when it's shared. But truth only needs one soul to stand. And when that soul is you, my friend, everything begins to change. And when that moment breaks in, when it finally comes, when truth isn't whispered, but roars through the silence like thunder rolling down a mountain, it doesn't just echo, it shakes. It splits illusions right down the middle. Everything that was once hidden behind charm and control can't hold its shape anymore. The truth comes like a flood. And the narcissist, they start scrambling for higher ground. Because there's a kind of strength this world can't market and Instagram can't package. It's the strength of stillness. The holy fire of self-control, not the kind that shouts back or throws punches with clever words. No, the real strength, the sacred kind, is the power to not respond. See, the world teaches us this. When someone throws a lie, throw back a sharper truth. When someone distorts your name, defend it. Fight fire with fire. But friend, that's not strength. That's bait. That's a trap. And the narcissist, that's their playground. That's their oxygen. That's how they breathe. Because they don't actually need you to agree with them. They just need you to stay engaged. To argue. To explain. To play. As long as you're dancing. But they're winning. But there comes a point. If you're lucky, if you're awake, where you just don't. Not out of bitterness. Not out of apathy. But out of something deeper. Something anchored. That moment when your soul says, I don't need this stage anymore. And in that moment, my God, the music starts to die. Because the narcissist isn't living in your world. They've got their own world made of roles you never asked to play. They with rules that shift when you get too close to the truth. They'll poke you with humor coated in acid. They'll bait you with praise that smells like strings. They'll set fires and then scream for help just to see how fast you'll run. But listen, none of it works if you don't show up. If you don't bite the hook. If you stop feeding them your attention, your outrage, your need to be understood. The moment you stop defending, stop explaining, stop performing, the whole thing starts to crumble. You want to shake a narcissist to the core. Walk away smiling. Walk away free. Don't flinch. Don't argue. Don't look back. Just leave the script in your seat and let the curtain fall without a single word. And yes, it gets loud when you do that. The narcissist escalates. They panic. They label. They paint your peace as pride, your silence as guilt, your boundaries as betrayal. Why? Because they've lost their grip. And when control is all someone's got, they'll burn the whole house down just to feel like they still have a match in their hand. But hear me, you don't owe anyone your exhaustion. You don't have to bleed for someone who calls your boundaries high tax. You don't have to defend the truth to people committed to misunderstanding it. Let them think what they want. You've got nothing to prove. Because power, real power, it's not in how loud you shout. It's in how grounded you are when the storm hits. It's in how little you need their approval to breathe. It's in your refusal to be puppeteered. The narcissist wants to be the author of your identity. But if you don't know who you are, they will write it for you. And believe me, they will write you small. They'll cast you as the villain in the story of their own innocence. But if you do know who you are, deep down, with unshakable clarity, then every lie they throw hits a wall. You don't flinch, you don't fold, you shine. And when you shine like that, when you walk in quiet, unwavering truth, people notice. Maybe not today. Maybe not this week. But one by one, they start to look twice. They start to question. They start to wonder why the narcissist always seems to need a new target, a new enemy, a new excuse. And that is how the spell breaks. You don't have to pull down their curtain. You just have to stop clapping. Because the second you stop performing, the illusion begins to fade. You want to talk about power. It's not in clenched fists or fiery comebacks. It's not in shouting someone into submission or out, talking their manipulation. Power isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. Power stands. Power endures. that power doesn't chase applause. It doesn't twist truth to win an argument. It simply is, like a mountain in the middle of a storm, unmoved, unshaken, unswayed. They and the narcissist, they can't handle that kind of power. Because truth doesn't bend to flattery. It doesn't tremble when they accuse. Truth doesn't care about optics. It just shows up and stays standing. That's why they come after the ones who won't play along. Not because those people are wrong, but because they won't dance. Because they won't pretend. Because they won't be bought with compliments or bullied with blame. You want to burn the narcissist's illusion to the ground. Live in truth. Keep showing up. Keep breathing free. Keep being consistent. Because the narcissist is constantly editing reality. Rehearsing stories, rewriting pasts, assigning blame like a director desperate for the perfect shot. But you don't have to keep track. You don't have to rehearse. Because the truth doesn't change. And when the truth walks in, lies start tripping over themselves. But I won't lie to you. This road is narrow. It's costly. Sometimes it gets lonelier before it gets lighter. You might lose people. People who believe the narcissist's version of your story. People who think silence means guilt. People who confuse manipulation with charisma. Let them go, because the truth doesn't chase. The truth doesn't beg. The truth doesn't shout at closed doors. It waits. It watches. It stands. And in time, that the lies will wear thin, the mask will crack. The story will unravel. Because lies don't last. They can't. Not under the steady heat of consistent, quiet truth. So let your life be the loudest thing in the room. Let your calm be your response. Let your peace speak in spaces where your words never could. Because when you live like that, when you stop reacting, stop engaging, stop needing their approval, you don't just survive, you end the game entirely. That's the thing about truth, real truth. It doesn't just shine a light on the lie. No, it heals the broken. It lifts the bowed. It finds the ones crushed under years of confusion and whispers. You don't have to keep pretending. You don't have to play their game. Truth unlocks cages you didn't even know you were living in. So if you're standing face to face with a master illusionist, a narcissist who spins lies like silk, who rearranges reality like furniture, who tries to rewrite the world's opinion of you, don't tremble. Don't meet them in the mud. Just stand. Stand so still, so firm, so free, that their web falls apart by its own weight. Because it will, and when it does, you won't just be standing on the side of truth. You'll be standing in victory. Let me say something the world's afraid to admit: you will suffer. Not maybe, not, if you're unlucky. You will be betrayed. Storms will knock. Let people you once held close will lie about you with words soaked in venom. You'll be wounded in places you didn't know could bleed. But your strength, it's not forged in comfort. It's born in fire. You're not under attack because you're weak. You're under fire because you refused to bow. They're because you stood when it would have been easier to disappear. You didn't fold into their fantasy. You didn't play your assigned part in their performance. And that, to the narcissist, is terrifying. They're not afraid of what you said. They're afraid of what you didn't do. You didn't engage. You didn't crumble. You didn't submit to the lie. So they strike, not with fists but with manipulation, smear campaigns, whispers in dark rooms, lies spun into poison and served with a smile. But you can't react. Because the insult isn't the trap. The invitation is. They don't want justice. They want your energy. They want your voice caught in their storm. And the moment you step into that arena, you've already lost the high ground. But when you don't take the bait, when you breathe deep, stay calm, and walk forward like you've seen the end of the story, that's when everything changes. You remind the world that real strength doesn't shout. It endures. Don't confuse silence for surrender. That's not weakness. That's warrior restraint. That's wilderness training. That's divine discipline that keeps standing when every rumor tries to knock you down. Yes, it hurts. Oh, it hurts. Not just the betrayal, but the loneliness, the grief of watching people walk away. Some of them never even asked your side. They just believed what was convenient. Let them go. Because what you gain in all this, you gain clarity. You gain strength the narcissist could never counterfeit. You gain the kind of discernment that sees through smiles and hears the motive behind the melody. You gain a backbone forged in holy fire. And no narcissist can touch that. Ever. This isn't just survival. It's resurrection. You are being rebuilt. And the pain isn't a punishment. It's preparation. Think of the greats, those who moved mountains, changed nations, shattered darkness. You think they were spared the fire? No, friend. They were tempered in it. And so are you. So let every false word sharpen you. Let every storm stretch you. Because you're not here to crawl. You're here to rise. And every time the narcissist tries to drag you down with lies, it only becomes another stone under your feet, another rung in the ladder you're climbing out of their pit. Until one day, you're standing so high, so steady, they can't even reach you anymore. There comes a day, and trust me, you'll feel it in your bones, when the battle no longer deserves you. You've cried the last tear. You've explained your heart enough times. You've stayed longer than your peace could survive. And the holiest thing you can do isn't scream louder, it's walk in rage, not in bitterness. In peace. With your head lifted and your soul intact. Because here's the truth the narcissist doesn't want to heal. They don't want truth. They want attention. They want confusion. They want you wrapped around their chaos, because that's where they feel powerful. But when you stop responding, that's when it all starts to fall. When you stop proving your innocence, if they lose their narrative. When you stop explaining your heart, they lose their audience. When you walk. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, completely. They are left alone with the one thing they can't escape themselves. And that, my friend, is what they fear most. The narcissist survives by reflection. They need someone to bounce their fantasy off of. They don't just need company. They need a co-star. But once you cut the script, once you stop dancing to their tune, once their name stops living in your head, their kingdom begins to rot from the inside out. But let's be honest, leaving them isn't the hardest part. Leaving their voice behind is. It shows up in your doubt. It whispers in the silence. It echoes in your lowest moments. That's the deeper work, healing from their ghost. You've got to reclaim your name. You've got to remember who you were before their storm started redefining your reflection. And yes, it'll hurt. But that hurt. That's the sound of chains snapping. That's the sound of soul reconstruction. That's freedom being forged. Let them talk. Let them rewrite history. Let them build a monument to their own deception. While they do, you rise, you rebuild. Because the narcissist doesn't fear being wrong. They fear being irrelevant. They fear a version of you that no longer dances for their approval. That no longer needs their validation to smile. That no longer reacts to their chaos like a puppet on a string. That version of you. Unreachable. Untouchable. And here's the death blow. You didn't win by outsmarting them. You didn't win by exposing them. You won by walking away. You won when you stopped auditioning for their approval. You won when you decided to stop explaining yourself to people who never wanted to understand you in the first place. You didn't just survive the war. You walked out holding peace in your hands. And now, the very things they tried to use to break you, your sensitivity, your heart, your hope, have become the tools that built your new life. You've reclaimed it all. This journey wasn't just about escaping their grip. It was about finding yourself again. It was about smashing the mirror they forced you to look into and building your own. One that tells the truth. One that reflects wholeness, joy, and quiet strength. It was never about revenge. It was always about freedom. And now you stand. Not broken, but reborn. Not breathless, but burning with life. Not surviving, becoming. So keep walking. Not because you're running anymore, but because you've finally remembered where you're going. To a place where your peace is protected, your joy is real, and your worth is non-negotiable. That, right there, that's the ultimate victory.